Started working on the fuel tank this week and went ahead and got it bolted all the way in. Here's what we've come up with. So I made tabs over here to hold it on. If y'all saw last week, we made the brackets down on the bottom. So if you missed it, we got the brackets over here coming down, and there's angle iron right there holding the bottom of the tank on. And then up on the top, there's brackets going to the original body mount here, going across and then clamping down on the fuel tank, holding that into place. Then over here on this side, I needed a filler neck, so I decided to do the gas can filler neck setup. There's a handful of guys out there that have done videos on how to do them, so for now, I just went ahead and put mine in. But if you can see, the filler neck, original one goes up through there. It's cut out the side. It goes into the fuel tank, and it's fully formed to this rear tub mount. So now that that's all in there, our next step that we need to do, start working on how to get this fuel or this seat mounted in here, because let me grab this steering wheel, sit down in here, and you can see how close we are. I mean, I got like a hand between my thigh and the original steering wheel here. So this isn't going to work. Now, you'll see next week I've already got the steering wheel cut down and a whole bunch of modification done to the original steering wheel. But it's at work because a buddy of mine at work wrapped it with paracord. So it's at work. But what we're working on right now is, obviously, this steering wheel is not going to be on here. But we need to cut down the seat brackets. If you can see looking at the back glass, how high the seat sits. This is a OBS Chevy seat. So what I'm going to do is cut 3 inches out of the bottom of this bracket. Now, to make 3 inches work, it's going to take a lot of cutting and welding on this bracket, but I want 3 inches out of it, because if you see how high the seat sits, I mean, it's like a monster truck seat. I mean, you're sitting way up in the air. So now I'm going to take this seat back out. Actually, I want to feel real quick how comfortable. I mean, obviously my legs are gonna be more curled up, but I was wondering how comfortable it was gonna be pushing on the gas and the brake. And it's pretty comfortable. I'm happy with it. That's a good spot for my leg over here. And then I would love to drop that brake pedal down, but I need to get it running and see how much throw we have in the brake pedal before I get to that point. Careful, you're gonna flood it. TFI. But all right, we'll pull this seat out and set it on the ground, start working on cutting it apart. All right, so last night the ground burned off the welding machine, so I didn't get a chance to finish it last night. But this morning, got here, got jumped on it, and here's what we got for you. So the seat is now, the seat brackets are chopped down 3 inches. It's still got a little bit of space behind it for storage back here. The seat doesn't stick up above the back glass. It's way more comfortable. You got a lot more room. You really don't realize how much space you have using this seat over the factory seat. But this is with a factory steering wheel, still factory size. And I have a lot more space, whereas before this was like basically rubbing on my thigh. And now, once I have the other steering wheel that's been cut down in here, it'll be even smaller, giving me even more space. Me being a fat guy, I mean, I have to give myself as much space as possible, but the seat is very ergonomical. It feels good, it feels comfortable, and I'm a little bit lower in here, so it feels nicer. You don't feel like you're sitting up on top of the world. You kind of feel like you're like fit in it correctly. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but we put the windshield in. So the windshield's in. All the fuel tank stuff is done. As for mounting it, the seat is now chopped. I'm not going to mount it yet because I have a couple more things to do in here. So actually I need to pull the seat back out. I can take the steering wheel, set it on the ground, and then I can get in here. I need to replace this windshield wiper motor because if I do it now, I can actually get to it, and then I can put my gauge cluster in and finish up all this wiring, like the turn signals and all this little piddly stuff. But I can't really get to it I can't get to that stuff with the gauge cluster in, so I need to get to that first. So that's probably what I'm going to jump on now, is that. And then once that's done, I need to jack the truck up still and get underneath it, do a bunch of stuff. I also need to work on a shifter. The shifter boot has to come back like here, or like right here somewhere, because it's a floor shift. So I'm going to have to end up cutting this whole tunnel section right here on the side open to build the new doghouse for that, and still be able to get to the gas pedal comfortably. So we'll probably need to jump on that sometime soon as well. And all this stuff, trying to get it done by next weekend. I mean, I'm gonna keep hauling butt on it. That's kind of why I'm not filming a lot. I'm kind of more showing you what I get done, because it takes up a lot of time whenever you're trying to video something. Like stopping and videoing it and doing all that stuff. Whereas if I just roll through it, I can roll through it and then come back and show you, here, this is what I made, here's how I made it. So for a moment, I'm going to turn this off, figure out what I'm going to do next, and then I'll come back and show you what we got. I got my wife over here working on the seat. She's going to use some of the spray adhesive and get the material to stick to the seat. And then we have some hog rings. We have some hog rings here that we can use to staple the seat, all this tight and everything onto here. So I'm going to keep working on some of the odds and ends that I'm trying to tighten up over here on the truck. I'm going to set her on time lapse over here to keep working on the seat. All right, so she finished the seat. So there's the finished product. I think it turned out awesome. We have a little bit of leftover material, and I went ahead and made these door panels out of actual door panel material that we've had extra of from years ago, buying it at an upholstery shop that was going out of business. So I got this door panel material, this cardstock basically, and she's going to go ahead and wrap these. One of them is marked as passenger, one of them is marked as driver, and that's the back sides. So this is the front side you see. So this is going to get that same Mexican blanket material on there as well. While she's wrapping those, I'm going to work on cutting these out. These are the kick panels for the truck. You got your passenger side and driver side kick panel. Now, the only difference is on the driver's side kick panel, whenever I go to actually mount it up here in the truck, the fuse block is back there. So I'm going to have to trim around this stuff, which is fine. But we have the initial panel that we're going to go ahead and make. So I got the jigsaw out. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these out. I think she's going to go ahead and work on the door panels, get the door panels knocked out, try to get some of this interior stuff wrapped up. All right, well, the camera cut off, but now our next thing we're gonna work on is building the shifter mount. So I'll go re-explain this whole thing we just did, because unfortunately I sat here and did all the work of explaining it and showing the detail on everything, and somehow we lost signal. So we know our shape of our floor is contoured, so that's how the metal is going to have to sit. So I went ahead and cut out a template. I had y'all with me, but apparently y'all decided that y'all were too busy for that. So I'm going to go ahead and build one for the back, and then we'll have to come back and make a second template for the front, because it's going to have to sit at a little bit of an angle. So it is going to be built with a slope to it, and I just realized that. Perfect. That's fine. That's fine. But I'm gonna go build this piece of metal, go cut this one out, and then we can cut another one for the front, and then we can make our piece that goes in between the two for the top, for the shifter to sit on, and then we can box in the sides and then cut out the floor where we need to, and then bolt this down into place, and we can build all the shifter linkage after that and have the shifter in. So now that I've got this rough cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the flap disc, and I'm going to come in and where all this is like roughly cut, I'm just going to take it back and clean up those edges where I need it to be rounded out and everything with the flap disc. So just trying to make it super simple on myself. There's no reason to overcomplicate it. This is just some scrap metal I had laying around, and I actually had used it to paint on top of. And I can come back and clean all that up whenever I'm ready. But right now, we just need to get this made. Got our first little deal started, and if I go right here, that fits really good. I do need to round that corner. I didn't round it to start with because I didn't know if it would need it, so I figured let's start without it, and if we need it, we'll round it. So let me go round that corner real quick, and I'll also bring cardboard back so we can trim the front side for this. There we go. Now that fits perfect. So now that we have this one shaped, and what I can do is just leave that right there, and then up here it's going to need to be a little bit more of a drastic cut up into this section. So let me cut that, or mark it, so we know a little bit more drastic up here. We're gonna need to cut this one as well. So we'll also mark this one out. You know, you can do all this with tools, but if you've been doing it for a long time, your eyeballs can be your best tools. So I'm gonna mark it like that, bring that up a little bit, round that edge out, and we know we're gonna go all the way up to there. So now let me take the scissors, cut that out. And what's also great about using cardboard, I mean, I'm not using metal, so I can just keep trimming until I like it. So if I go right there to that edge is where I want to do it. I really like that. It fits down there good. I also like that. So now I can take this piece over, transfer it to metal, and then we can do a piece to tie these two together and then go from there. All right, let's go cut this one out. What I'm gonna do here is this edge, I'm gonna just follow it over longer, probably about to about here. Might as well just take it to the end. Ain't gonna hurt nothing. I can always cut off more. We're gonna leave a little lip on the top, because once again, you can always make it shorter. And metal, honestly, you can always make it longer if you got a weld machine, but it's a lot easier to over prepare and under deliver. So now, just bring this up, that edge where I've already got that cut. We'll take this one over. And I wish I had a better marker. I can use black for me. I know how to see it, but for the camera, it's a little bit better to use the silver. So this is a very rough idea of what we're doing, but that's all I need for right now. It's just a rough idea, because I'm just gonna cut all this out, reshape these edges. Y'all saw me do it just a second ago, so I'm not gonna show y'all again. We're just gonna cut this one out. We'll go over in the truck, see how everything's gonna fit, what all we need to do. And then we can start building from these two pieces. This will be our foundation to be able to build everything we gotta build over there in the truck. All right, so we got both these made. My next step is to take the tape measure across here. We can do it to 10. Do 10 inches by, I measured this a second ago. I'm gonna go 6 inches, but I'm gonna cut an inch off of it whenever I go to here. Like whenever I mount it, I'm gonna go 1 inch in, 1 inch in, and then 10 inches across. Make a square or rectangle plate that'll weld between those. And then I can also do one down the side. I'll probably end up notching the top corner, but I need to get that piece in and figure out how much of it I'm gonna cut off the sides here. Once that's all in place, then we can trim off the excess over here and over here, and then we can figure out exactly how our hole is gonna get cut in the center. All right, so I went over into place in the truck, and this is all gonna work out for us. This 1 inch that I left over the lip, we're actually gonna end up cutting it off. So I'll cut the 1 inch off of both sides. I did go ahead and slap a piece of scrap metal on this end because we're gonna box it up. What I'm gonna do now is come back, I'm gonna cut these two ends off. I'm gonna weld this all on the inside all the way around. So that way, whenever I grind the outside, it can have a nice little rolled edge, and we still keep the integrity of the weld, because it'll be, if you see how it beads up on the inside right there, how it beads up. That'll make it where it has a nice little bevel or a build up on the inside, so whenever you round on the outside, you don't lose the weld. So I'm going to do that all the way around this. We can go ahead and plate this side off, and then once that's plated off, we can make our layout on how the shifter is going to bolt to this, and we can go ahead, cut out the square for that, slide the shifter through it, get it bolted to it. And then I have one more thing that I want to do to this before this is ready to go in the truck for good. So here's what we got sitting down into place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some duct tape and I'm going to mark out on the floor where this is at. So that way I can come in here with the saw, cut the floor out, and still have the spot where this is at. So I'm going to grab some duct tape real quick, mark that out. I can take this over to the table after we mark it out, and I can start building the mount for where that's going to land, or where the shifter is actually going to mount into this. So I can cut the hole into here, slide it down into place, mark out for the bolts, and do all that stuff onto this piece. All right, so there it is, all completed. We got the flanges on there all the way around for it to get bolted on. We got the hole cut in here. Now, one last thing that I told y'all, I kind of had something up my sleeve. Remove this corner. Now, I can take this piece and set it on a piece of metal, and I can trace out that diamond shape, triangle, whatever. Now, set that on there, weld that on. Then whenever you're sitting in the truck and you got this down here, you have plenty of extra space here for your foot to pass. You don't have to worry about your foot getting hung behind the gas pedal. So just a little extra little knock into it, so that way we make sure we have plenty of room for the shifter to work, as well as we don't wind up killing ourselves driving down the road because that ends up getting in the way. So now I'll take this, make the layout on here, cut this piece, weld it on here, and then we can take this outside, paint it, and then go ahead and start bolting this into the truck. So here it is, painted and working on installing. So if you see I push it down, our tabs will go down. You got the carpet and everything that's kind of keeping it up. So now I'll go ahead, throw a bolt through here, and then throw a bolt through here, throw a bolt through here. We get those three bolted down, then we can go to our bolts in it, and then I can go to the bottom, my wife can go to the top, and we'll get that tightened up. But if you see, I mean, look at how much room that gives you on your foot. That's so much more convenient and doesn't feel like you're going to die. So let me get this all tightened down in here and we'll keep rolling on. Well, here we go. This is not fully bolted in, waiting on a couple more things so I can finalize it, but we can all see it together. Here is the final look of how the interior is going to be. So we do have the gauge cluster to finish up and some of the wiring up there. Basically all of the wiring up there. Got to get some more bolts so I can finish up the shifter. But that's the final look of how it's going to be. You see I got the kick panel setting in down there in the bottom. And the door panel sitting on and the seat in. But man, I like the way that turned out. I appreciate y'all watching. We got a lot to do in the following week. So y'all keep tuned and see you next week.